Hey everyone, my name is Reiser with School of Grit, and today I'm going to be breaking down for you my very first VA loan purchase duplex. So this was the second property that I purchased with my VA loan. First one, I bought a condo. The second one, I bought a small multifamily. If you are currently serving on active duty or you're a veteran and you haven't used your VA loan yet, or you have used it and you're just looking for more information on it, this is the video for you. Some of the factors that stood out to me on this second property purchase. I knew that I wanted to get a multifamily. My first property was a condo. This one, I knew that I wanted a backyard area with some off-street parking. It was in very close proximity to a new nationwide children's hospital that was being developed. And what I learned early on was I had a mentor teach me that there's three great places to buy residential real estate near. Good schools or in a good school district, near a hospital, or commercial real estate, i.e. bars, restaurants, shops, etc. And I knew that this was going to be near a hospital. I knew that there was a new development, and around those areas are great investment opportunities because those big hospitals and those big facilities have a whole ecosystem of doctors, nurses, staff, everything. And those people are always looking for good quality homes that are in close proximity to the hospital. So some unique features that I found in this property, which led me to eventually purchase it, were that it was built in 1985, and all of the properties in this neighborhood are much older. They don't have basements. This property had a fully finished basement with tons of space and 8 or maybe 9 foot ceilings, but you could stand up comfortably. All the other properties in this neighborhood were like, they had these old basements. They were very old properties built in like the 40s or 50s, and it wasn't really a great living space down there, but this property had that. And I knew that over time for this property, I could eventually build in escape windows that would allow me to add that square footage to the property. And additionally, I could put a bathroom down there and have it as another potential bedroom or living area. Another cool thing was the lot size. It has a very large, for the area, a very large backyard. And I purchased it, it didn't have a fence around it. So I added a fence. I added a 6-foot cedar fence over, I'd say, a year's time frame. We kind of replaced it in pieces. But then eventually we got a full fence around it. It had an amazing back concrete pad, which has 4 parking spaces. And for those of you who don't know this area, in Columbus, most of the parking spaces in the alleys behind properties are either dirt or gravel, but this one already had a concrete slab. So when tenants or I would pull in, they'd be parking on concrete. They'd not be parking on dirt and tracking all that stuff into the house. So that might seem insignificant, but it is a huge selling point to tenants, as they know that their car's not going to get muddy and dirty when it rains, and they're not going to track all that stuff into the house. Another thing that really stood out to me about this property specifically was all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing was in phenomenal shape. The AC units had just been replaced within the last 3 years. The furnace had just been replaced in the last 3 years. The roof had been replaced in the last 5 years. And I knew that I could go into this property, and although it looked outdated, I could make those cosmetic updates, make it pop and come to life. But also, there was a high likelihood that all of that equipment and all that stuff that was in the property was going to stand the test of time, and I wouldn't really have to put much capital down on those big, large expenses, which is something that can really hurt you in purchasing a property early on. So here's my general plan for when I first purchased this property. Little known fact, you have to occupy your VA loan property you have up until 60 days. So I purchased this property, I wrote a check at closing for $2,700. Both sides of the property were rented at $750 per side. So for the first 60 days, I didn't even occupy the property. I collected that rent, and my mortgage also didn't start for those first 60 days. It took about 60 days for my first payment on my mortgage. So I immediately made $3,000, and essentially it was $300 net on that first 60 days of that property. That's not common for everybody, but if you know that you can do that and you know that you don't have to occupy for the first 60 days, but you have to occupy like at that 60th day into the property, if you buy a property that's already rented, you can collect that rent. Even if it's a single family home, you can collect that rent, and then that helps you offset some of your costs. So the second part of that was, once I made it through those first 60 days, I occupied one of the sides. My general goal was to live in it. As I was living there, working full time, I made some cosmetic updates. I replaced the carpet. I scraped some of the ceiling off. I had, again, those old ugly textured ceilings. I replaced those. I updated some of the cabinets. I painted them, sanded them, added some hardware, just made it look nicer, like made it more appealing to a tenant. It was a little outdated, it was from like the 80s. So I made it look nicer. I made it look a little bit more modern. Once I got it to looking pretty good, it took me a couple months. I listed it for rent, got it rented, and then I moved to the other side. Once I moved to the other side, that tenant had moved out, and I started doing the exact same thing. So now I have the first side rented, I've increased the income, and now I've moved to the other side. My plan for the other side was, because I was running Airbnbs and I had a short-term rental company, my goal for this side to maximize cash flow was I was gonna make this side even nicer than I did the other side, to make it more appealing for travelers, for tourists, guests, and people coming to Columbus, and put amenities and furnishings and furniture in that property so that people would want to stay there. I built the fence around it, I put a fire pit in the backyard, I built a small garden, all these small little things that made this property more desirable for people to come stay there, which again, increased the revenue. So that took another couple months, built everything out, took the pictures, got it listed, and then at about month like 13 or 14, I moved out of that side, listed it full-time on Airbnb, and then collectively that property was netting me anywhere from $2,500 a month all the way up to as high as, I think, $3,500, maybe $3,800 in peak season. But pretty consistently, it was bringing in north of $1,800 in cash flow on a monthly basis. So that was that one property. Between that property and my duplex, that was a good $2,000 to $3,000 in cash flow on just those 3 doors. So I had 2 properties, 1 condo and 1 duplex, and those 3 doors were replicating over 50% of the money that I needed to cash flow to get me to my financial freedom. So for this property, my long-term vision is basically buy and hold. So I am a buy and hold investor. Whatever happens in the market, buying real estate gives you options. You have options to refinance, you have options to sell, you have options to force appreciate the property and put money into it, make it nicer, and increase the rent. This property specifically has an area in the back where I could also add a garage or an ADU, additional dwelling unit, and make a third livable space, maybe a studio or a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom with some garage space underneath, and really maximize the land that I have. And the VA loan has options for that. There's additional capital. You can go to local banks and do renovation loans. Like, it gives you a lot of other options. But right now, my property is cash flowing great for me. It's money that I use to pay down my living expenses. That is the part of the financial freedom, is your real estate pays for your living expenses, frees up your time, and allows you to go spend that time doing projects or doing other stuff that you enjoy doing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. I share these videos to educate and kind of show you all what's out there, what the possibilities are with your VA loan and in real estate. I encourage you to go out there, learn about it first, see if it's right for you, get comfortable with it, and understand what real estate is, how to find great tenants, how to look for great properties, and then go out there, take the leap, and bet on yourself, and believe in yourself that you can do everything that I did, and hopefully probably even do it better. Hopefully you're learning from the experiences that I've shared with you, and you guys can go on and conquer your financial freedom goals and aspirations. If you like this video, if you learned from it, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends.